Hey everybody, I'm Harry Collins, and I just wrapped up a couple of weeks down in Florida. I was photographing, filming wildlife, and running a private tour. And during those couple of weeks, I shot exclusively with the Canon R1, which I've been doing for about the last 6 months now. And even though I've done a Canon R1 review before, if you haven't seen it, I will link it in the description. I want to do a little bit of a, quote unquote, long term review, if you want to call it that. Just kind of talk about how my feelings have maybe changed or haven't changed about this camera and my experience over the last 6 months or so shooting with it. So one new thing, this camera did overheat on me for the first time. The first 3 or so days that we were in Florida, it was mid 90s, and the very first day we sat on an owl nest for a solid 4, maybe even longer hours, just waiting in the blazing sun. And the camera did overheat on me. Again, it was very, very hot. The camera was physically hot to touch even without shooting. So I do think that it comes down to just the ambient heat and how hot it was outside. The rest of the trip, it did not overheat again, even though I did get some of the overheat warnings. It was very good outside of that. But waiting for these little owlets to come out of this tree for hours and just constantly, I was using pre-record in case the parent came and things like that. And like I said, it did overheat, but that was the one and only time that that happened to me. During this trip, I would spend a significant amount of time with the barred owls, especially in low light situations, very low light. There was a lot of interactions between owls and squirrels, and I was regularly shooting action, and even though it may not look like it, it was just near darkness or very low light, and trying to get a lot of this action captured was just amazing with the R1. It really does a good job. And even in low light situations like this, I was able to track this owl flying. And I'll talk a little bit more about autofocus settings and things like that later. But for now, I want to get into some of the raw shots. As you can see, this is at 4000 ISO. And if you zoom in and look at this, I mean, there's like no noise. I mean, almost no noise in this whatsoever. This is amazing. I mean, 4000 ISO, that 10 years ago, I mean, I would have been deleting this image here. But as you know, this owl would fly, the ISO would actually go up a little bit higher. I shoot auto ISO, so it actually went up to 6400 ISO. And as we take a look, very, very minimal noise here. And the owl itself is sharp. That's the most important thing. Still looks good. So as we move along in the sequence, I would actually even go higher. So this is a weird thing to me. I don't even think about ISO anymore. And these images here were shot at, I'm just trying to look, these were 10,000 ISO. And as you look, as the owl flies, I mean, everything's sharp. It didn't miss any shots. And yeah, so 1/1600th of a second shutter, 10,000 ISO at f4. And I mean, look at that. It just looks so good for 10,000 ISO. It's crazy. And, if I go ahead and just do like we'll just do like a really quick edit here. I'm just looking at details, and I mean, that owl's sharp, more than usable. Very, very minimal noise in the background here. And just to see, we'll do a quick edit. As I said, the colors are still there. This was shot right at sunrise. I mean, as you can see, as I just kind of pull the colors back, all the colors are still there, and man, that just looks so good. That's just amazing, like I said. So owls weren't the only thing that I shot during this trip. I would spend a lot of time shooting nesting herons and egrets. And the thing about Florida is everything is so close. I mean, this is an iPhone video, but of course everything looks better with a quote-unquote real camera. These egrets, they're just so close to the boardwalk. You're able to get right up to them. And these were some newly hatched egret chicks, which was really cool. It was nice to be able to get them both with eggs. And then when I came back a couple days later, they had hatched. And then, I got the first couple days after they hatched. And the R1, again, did a really good job with dynamic range. White birds in bright sunlight is quite a challenge. Another thing that I really like to photograph is burrowing owls. When I first saw burrowing owls, I used to think you had to drive way out in the middle of the Everglades, but that is not the case at all. They are right in the middle of town, and they are everywhere. People's yards, baseball fields, and things like that. And shooting these guys was when my new favorite feature of the R1 came in handy, and that's pre-capture. There was one particular owl that liked to sit in a tree, which is, semi-rare for burrowing owls. And the blue jays would just harass the crap out of this thing. And every now and again, he would take off and fly back and forth. And the pre-capture allowed me to get so many of these shots that I would have missed, because these things are really, really fast in flight. They're a huge challenge to get. I absolutely love pre-capture. I wish we had a little bit longer. A full second would be nice. But also, that said, you know, with the amount of photos that I've been taking lately at 40 frames a second plus the pre-capture, I mean, I'm coming in at crazy numbers of photos on these trips, you know, sometimes 50,000 or more. It's just, I'm not afraid to overshoot to make sure I get the right shot, but it does add up really fast. So that's something, you know, you really have to factor in. It's just a little bit extra hard drive space or things like that. I'm filling up, you know, 4 or 5 terabyte hard drives on some of these trips. Granted, that's with a lot of video too, but again, pre-capture, I mean, I wouldn't have got, you know, some of my favorite shots of this trips without it. So absolutely love that feature. Speaking of pre-capture, it's also wonderful to have for video. I'm loving having the 3 and 5 second option. I think both are more than enough. The one thing I will say though is if you're going to use this, remember it's always running and it will eat up some battery. If you're a LCD user, you know, your back LCD screen, that's also going to rip through batteries. There was a scene we were filming. I was waiting for the moon to rise and line up with these spoonbills. And, you know, I was using the LCD and pre-record and everything else. And man, it was just killing batteries. Normally I'm a viewfinder only type shooter, and that makes the batteries last a lot longer. But next thing up, let's talk a little bit more about autofocus. This camera does a great job tracking these birds in flight, and you know, as well as basically any other scene. But that's the number one question I get is, first off, what video settings do I use, and autofocus settings. So let's talk about that. For video size, I always shoot 4K unless I'm in the rare instance where I'm shooting 6K RAW. I like 120 frames a second. It's not for everything, not for everyone, but I like the flexibility of having the slow motion if I need it. And I shoot the intro mode, which is less compressed. I do not use the high frame rate feature where it automatically slows down. I shoot an XF AVC 10-bit, and I do use the movie cropping from time to time. I do like that feature. As far as autofocus goes, I limit my autofocus. This is the same for photos and videos to 4 different points. Single point, flexible zone, whole area, and then the locked single point, which is like the old school DSLR style true single point, does not have tracking. And I assign the ability to switch that to the multifunction button so that way I can quickly cycle through all the different modes if I need to. So let's talk about each one. This is single point with tracking. I like this when there's multiple subjects. As you can see, you know, it will track outside of the single point, but it gives you a little bit more control. Whereas, you know, the larger flexible zone, this I tend to use for just one subject because when there's multiple subjects, you know, it's not quite as accurate. The whole area autofocus, that's where I'll use for like a single subject with you know, very minimal distractions. And then the last is the locked single point. This is a true single point, no tracking whatsoever. Just, you know, in a very challenging autofocus scenario, I'll use that. But the majority of the time for me, you know, most of the time I'm shooting the flexible zone 1 with the tracking on it. A scene like this beach here, this is a good example where I like the full frame with eye focus mode, tracking mode, because there's no distractions. It's just a wide open beach. There was a single bird fishing. You know, I had a great blue heron with a fish and some reddish egrets fishing. And reddish egrets, if you've ever seen them, they're very erratic. They move back and forth, very unpredictable. So using the whole area to focus really just makes it a lot easier to track. And again, I do this. This is both the same for video and for photos for me. And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm sure a lot of you are probably yelling at the computer that I'm an idiot or something because this is what I like. This is just how I do it. This is what works for me. That may not work for you. So one of the coolest things about Florida is just how tolerant and how close so many of the animals are. You know, it's so much different than from where I live, you know, where the animals fly away as soon as you look at them. Some of these things, they nest so close that you could touch them. And this really gives you the ability to try some creative things. You know, my big thing this year was kind of doing some moving video. So I was shooting a lot handheld, and the Ibis did a really good job. Again, even in low light, you know, I shoot a lot handheld as far as both videos and photo, and it did a really good job. But yeah, another cool thing with Florida is a lot of these rookeries and things like that are just right in the middle of these neighborhoods. You know, you're driving and it's just kind of these little developments, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's just this giant rookery. And I was able to get again a lot of cool footage. I'm loving the colors that are coming out of this camera. I think it's phenomenal. I think it does a really good job. Again, with white birds, yeah, it's a little bright, but keep in mind this was like early in the afternoon in bright Florida sun. No filters, no C-Log. Oh, that's something I didn't really mention. I don't shoot C-Log a whole lot unless I'm shooting contract work. I don't know. I just don't really want the extra headache, and I think the colors and everything and the dynamic range right out of the camera just looks so good that I don't think we really need it. My only real problem with this camera, now that I'm looking at the footage of the woodpeckers here, is I'm still having a lot of issues with this camera switching between photos and videos. Sometimes it just locks up and it just will never go into video mode. And for this particular woodpecker nest, I was waiting for quite a while for the parent to come in. It finally returned and I went to shoot and the whole camera was just frozen. So I'm still getting freezings. I have to pull the battery. It's very frustrating, but the quick toggle between photo and video, it's just something that needs to be fixed. I get so frustrated when I'm in the heat of trying to shoot something quick and I can't go back and forth. So hopefully Canon addresses this. I don't know if I'm the only one having this issue or not, but it's very, very frustrating. I did spend another day out on a lake. We were shooting a lot of eagles and osprey, and some of these shots, we're from a boat, and the boat's rocking. I'm shooting all these shots handheld. Once again, great job. I had no complaints whatsoever, and I really am just loving this camera. When I first got this camera in the beginning, I wasn't like in love with it, so to speak. I didn't really think it was that big of an upgrade over the R3, but I have to say, now that I go back and forth between them a lot, the R3, something about the R3, I still absolutely love the R3. I'm not getting rid of my R3. I'm keeping it. But now to me, the R1, honestly, it just does feel, it feels better. I don't know how else to describe it. It just does feel better. If you buy an R3, you're not going to regret it. Wonderful camera. But the R1 is definitely my new favorite camera. I'm not sponsored by Canon. I'm not paid to say this. I don't get any discounts, none of that stuff. These are just my true, honest thoughts. And hopefully this helped you. I don't know. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks.